Hi, I'm Dave Klausmeyer, editor of Fly Tire Magazine at the 2008 Fly Fishing Retailer Show in Denver, Colorado. Right now I'm standing with Dr. Tom Whiting of Whiting Farms. If you're a fly tire, you know Whiting Farms. They certainly grow the finest fly tying feathers in the history of our craft. A year ago, Tom was kind enough to tell us a little bit about dry fly hackle. This year, he's going to tell us about the importance of hens and what we do with those feathers. Tom.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. This is one of my favorite hens. I've raised a lot of different type of birds, but this is probably my truly favorite, and it has a long history in the fly tying world. I can't claim to have developed it because it goes back about 500 years. It's called the coq de lion, and it's coq de lion, which is a French word for coq means cock or rooster, and de Leon means from Leon, and that's the northwest corner of Spain. And these birds, they have records going back almost 500 years, or over 500 years, that they've actually been raised specifically for fly tying feathers for fishing flies in Spain. Well, Whiting Farms, through a lot of manipulations and bureaucracy and paperwork, imported some in the early 90s, and I'm glad I did it then because it would have been a lot harder now. But anyway, I brought in 3 shipments of the coq de lion birds. I actually did a little trade with them. And anyway, they're a beautiful, rugged bird. The sedge flies that the original coq de lion fishing flies were used had some very unique characteristics, and Dick will talk about them. But what interesting thing about them was, when I first got them, we had the importation. Many of the birds were just pure black, the hens were, with a little bit of badger or lacing on the cape. But I noticed in the feathers there was a nice little mottling, and people were talking to me about the desirability of bustard feathers. So I had so many of them, I selected the birds that had the most mottling, and over about 10 or 12 generations, the whole bird has become mottled. And this has allowed a whole new set of fly tying feathers for a whole array of different fly tying functions. In particular, the breast feather on here, which we call the soft hackle or breast feathers, almost are a grouse substitute. They're very boldly marked, they're rather wide, they have interesting tawny hues, bronze hues, brown, sort of, well, it's just very complex and interesting, and nature and the flies that they tie are very interesting, so I particularly like that. The capes have feathers that are mottled, a little bit subtler, but the edges are a beautiful cream, and so these make interesting fly or legs on flies. The tail, which is back here, have almost a mini bustard, meaning it's very intensely speckled, and the speckling goes all the way through the feather. And it isn't large enough to tie a full-dressed Atlantic salmon fly yet, but it still is a very sellable feather. We also sell the saddles, which is a little difficult to see, but it's behind the cape and in front of the tail, and it's also a very wide, soft feather. So the coq de lion, through just some genetic selection towards what is interesting for a fly tire, modeling, has turned into its own product that has many substitutes, but also things that are in and of itself.
Dick, I'm here with Uncle Dickie Tallure, who's now going to get into some specifics. What patterns would you tie using coq de lion?
Well, soft hackle wet flies, you can tie a great variety of patterns with these feathers here from the breast area, and also you can use these feathers. These are a little darker, they have the same modeling. They have beautiful fine quills, so they wrap so easily with no splits or anything like that. And these take the dye very well too, so if you want olive or if you want a different brown or something like that, that's easy, can be done. These feathers deeper down in the breast are longer, as you can see, and I've got a fly I tie called the Savage Seducer, and these feathers make up the whole fly, except for maybe a bead or a cone head on the front. And it's a killer because in the water it comes alive. It almost swims by itself. These are great streamer fly materials right back here, all by themselves. They're just gorgeous. Like I said, you can dye them various colors. And last but not least, what's really interesting is the tail feathers, which on most birds are of no use. But if you look at these beautifully modeled tail feathers, you can tie wet flies that have speckled wings, like the March brown and various caddis and so forth. And if you get a centered quill like this, you can get both wings from one side of the feather and the other, so you don't have to match up 2 different feathers. So these are the most utilitarian birds I've ever seen. You can use almost every feather on the pelt for some kind of effective fly.
That's fantastic. And of course, I still think the most amazing thing is how does he get the bird to stand so still?
Well, I hypnotize them, you know.
I'm Dave Klausmeyer, one of our best friends, Dick Tallure. Of course, look around on our website. We have another film with Dick talking about his new book, Trout Flies of the 21st Century. I want you to check that out.